I mean, I feel like, because like on a laptop, I put maybe one sticker on, but I think if you go too much, then it's like you see those cars with like 8 million bumper stickers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to see your entire life, what you've ever thought about everything. But I don't know. Maybe that's different for laptops. Maybe there's a different rule.
I think 1 or 2 stickers, I'm interested. I'll take a look, kind of see what's going on. Yeah. Any more than that, it's just noise.
Clutter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should maybe there should be a guide to that should be written. How many stickers are appropriate on a laptop?
The best are those Apple stickers where he's like Homer eating a bite out of the apple. I like those a lot.
Yep. All right.
Just need to eat an apple.
You haven't seen those? Yeah, it's true.
Let's get a Calvin and Hobbes one on there too. All right, I think that we are live now. Hello, this is Close to the Metal. This is our weekly computing podcast where we talk about, we go in depth with anything dealing with computing. And today we're going to be talking about gaming laptops. Now the key is this is an audio podcast, but we're also live on YouTube right now. And for those of you watching, we want you to join in with us. Send us your questions. We're going to talk about gaming laptops, where they're going, why there's problems with them. What it takes to build one, and everything that has to do with that. And we do want to hear your feedback, so I notice people are joining in right now, so definitely get your comments in there, and I'll make sure we get them. I'm your host, Greg Nibbler, and let's introduce our usual crew here to my right.
I'm Brad Burke.
Brad Burke with the coffee mug that has no stickers on it, which was the problem of what we were talking about at the beginning.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to get to that. And then on the end,
Matt Smith.
It is Matt Smith. All right, so guys, gaming laptops. Let's talk about this. Let's start at the beginning. And I'm curious out there, everybody watching, what gaming laptop do you own? If you own one, or are you thinking about buying one? Because one of the things I think that no matter how much advanced all of the technology gets with standard computers, gaming laptops has always been this area where it doesn't seem like anybody really has quite figured it out yet. And I guess maybe to get started on it, why is that? Why are they so hard to make?
Well, I think part of it is that you take something like a gaming desktop and you're generating, you're sucking up a ton of power, you're pumping out a ton of heat. It's just really hard to take all of those components that are sort of built to be in a form factor where there is lots of airflow and lots of power, and put it in something like this where you have very little power and you have very little airflow and you have very little room to work with. At its core, that's a very difficult problem to solve. And it's something that, especially as they wanted to get really thin, things like if you want a really thin laptop, you can't have a very big battery because batteries take up space. So you've got to, compensate for that in other ways by using good power management, or you just have to accept the fact that your laptop isn't going to last very long without a power adapter,
Yeah, you're just kind of stuck with that. I mean, but you would think, though, with everything shrinking down and just the advancements of technology, somebody would figure that out as far as how to transfer the heat out of there.
Yeah.
But no, that's just not.
I mean, they use some of the same methods that they use in desktops now. We're starting to get more vapor chambers and that sort of thing showing up, and active and passive cooling, which is something that desktops often do. But it's just it's a tricky problem to solve.
It's physics.
Physics. It all comes down to the physics side of it.
It's dumb old physics. I mean, you've got. So the thing is that whenever power goes into a system, it's going to be making heat. Doesn't matter what kind of system it is. If it goes in, it's going to come out with some heat.
Professor Matt down here.
When you are making something that's small and thin, but also consumes a lot of power.
Yeah.
Well, there's your problem right there.
You're just out of luck.
And if anything, that's been proven even more true in recent years. I think there was some thought that maybe we would sort of get past this problem with all the improvements in efficiency. Your regular laptop is so thin these days.
Yeah.
But your regular laptop also can get by on using a 15-watt thermal design power, and maybe it'll use up to 20 watts or something when you're really gunning it with graphics and processor and everything. But these laptops can use 50 to 100 watts
per game, just on running a game.
Yeah, which several times as much.
Yeah.
So that means you have that much more heat basically to deal with, and there's not really a way to get around that. Like, you need that power to run the games. It's not like the games have gotten a lot less demanding lately.
Right. It takes so much to run these advanced games, but then with that heat, so essentially it's just frying the insides of the computer, or
Well, I don't know.
Or your legs.
Or
Yeah,
your
or your
legs.
legs. Or your legs. Yeah, but I mean, and that hasn't been true with like regular laptops, right? Mm-hmm. Like with our regular laptops, we kind of feel okay with like things that are not that much faster than it used to be, or like small improvements because we're running like web browsers on them, right?
Right.
We're running Excel, Word, whatever. So, we have our thin laptop, and we're like, that's fine, that's good enough. We don't need to do anything more than that. But then with gaming, of course, there hasn't been that diminishing returns. There's no like, we're not at the point of like good enough gaming, right? People talk about good enough computing. And
gaming just
I would
isn't
debate
there.
whether or not that's actually a thing, but going past that, that's definitely not applicable to gaming. We have actually seen that a lot of gaming laptops are still pretty thick.
Yeah.
I think part of it too, when we talk about newer like Core M chips especially that can run fanless, that really helps you slim down the design of a computer when you don't have to worry about things like that. And it's a corner that I think sort of consumer machines have turned that gaming laptops have not been able to turn yet, like you're saying, because especially the GPU is a big device, and even the small mobile ones are still a sizable device that needs its own dedicated power and cooling.
So heat is a huge issue.
Yeah.
As far as you can't cool them down because you have to run so much power to run these games. And the games, like you said, they're not going to get less taxing. It's only going to get more complex, I would imagine, as it goes on. So that's a problem. I noticed also, battery life, because that's another big thing, is you don't want to be playing for, 45 minutes and up. No, that's it. Now you got to go find it, but plug in or turn it off or whatever you want to do. Simon is saying in the chat, it's not a perfect laptop without the right portability. That's his comment on it, talking about different kinds of laptops.
Yeah, which is a fair point to make,
Yeah.
I think. There's actually a lot of difference in portability between gaming laptops, maybe more so than in other categories. Like we get a nice, like let's say we get a nice 2-in-1. Something that's running like at least around $800 or something, and like those premium 2-in-1s, pretty much all of those are getting 4 or 5 hours of battery life in our most demanding test, and pretty much all of them are going to run at least 8 hours on video, right?
Yeah.
But with gaming laptops, I mean, we've seen gaming laptops that can last up to about 5 hours in a demanding test, and we've also seen gaming laptops that last 2 hours, and that's kind of test. And also, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people know, but laptops are pretty much confined to a maximum battery size of 99 watt hours, because anything larger than that isn't legal to take on a plane.
Oh, okay. I did not know
So-
that. All right. So that's your cap. You can't go past that.
Yeah, so that means no matter what the power consumption of the gaming laptop is, and we do see a lot of gaming laptops with 80, 90 plus watt hour batteries, but no matter how much power it's consuming, that's pretty much the biggest battery you're going to get.
So the more demanding the game, the more power it's using.
And that means
That's
there's a
just
ceiling
it.
on what you can expect from the battery life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay. All right, that's a good point on it. Someone also says if you want 60 frames per second on a laptop, it's not a laptop anymore. And that's
I mean, I think that's becoming less true. I think the latest NVIDIA graphics series has made a big push towards power efficiency and working towards this thing we're talking about, this sort of corner to turn, in a way that we have seen really competent mobile gaming chips, I think, this time around. I think we started to see that, the 970M and the 980, a bit in bigger laptops last time around, and this time we're seeing 1060, 1070 performance in a laptop can produce really nice frame rates at 1080p or even 1440.
See, I would actually disagree with that a little bit. I think that gaming laptops have been in a particularly tough spot lately, because I think games, like high-end games, have become, over the last few years since the release of the latest console generation, they've become more demanding. There's a lot of scalability, and if you are the kind of person that wants to run things at very high settings, no matter what,
yeah.
Even if you've got a 1080 in your gaming laptop, you might not be able to do that. And most people don't. I think most people have like a 1060 or 1070. I think in our test, we've seen, a lot of games will run at 60 frames per second on those. But if you want to run things like Deus Ex: Mankind Divided at the highest or near highest settings, or Civilization 6, everything ramped up, if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, it's pretty tough to do. So
how much of that do you think is hardware versus software, though? That like companies are saying now people have 1070s, they have 1080s in their rigs, they can handle a lot of demands at 4K, at 1440p, at 3440 by 1440, and so game developers like the Mankind Divided was a game where they looked out and said, here's the new graphics hardware coming down the pipeline, let's really make this a showpiece. As much as you also have games like Battlefield 1 that is a really attractive game and is very highly played, but is also much more, much better optimized and really recent. Or games like, Overwatch. There's a lot of games that are trying to push that boundary, as there always have been. But there are a lot of games that are doing, I think, a better job with optimization now that this kind of graphics hardware is more readily
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, there's always, those two things always exist together. Mm-hmm. But I think, just going back a few years to like the end of the Xbox 360, PS3 generation, that I think was a generation where we saw a lot of those games that were getting console ports over, that were cross-platform.
Yeah.
They just like, even at their highest settings, like they really wouldn't tax a computer. Because the games just, they weren't designed to have a high enough texture resolution or high enough polygon count. And, if that's the last time you bought a gaming laptop, I think you might be more used to that environment. Mm-hmm. And I think today, like people are making real show pieces. And you, regardless of the gaming laptop you buy, like you probably can't expect to run 60 FPS, everything at maximum.
So it's just not going to happen.
And in the most demanding games. Which again, like that's not, like, that's a slim number of games. But, it's also the games that you're going to be first to load up and play on your fancy new gaming laptop.
You're going to want to do that. You go spend a bunch of money on it.
You're probably not going to spend, $3,000 on a gaming laptop and then load up Dota and only play that. You might go load up Mankind Divided and play for an hour and then only play Dota. But you're going to load up Mankind Divided.
Absolutely. That's what you're going to want to do.
I was actually going to say, I feel like most people who spend a couple grand on a gaming laptop are probably mostly playing Dota, League of Legends, or Minecraft.
Yeah. Well, again, we're talking about gaming laptops and just how hard it is to build a good gaming laptop. But we're going to get into some things about what actually does work with them. And we've got a couple of review pieces here that we're going to talk about as well. And if you're watching live, please let us know, if you're using one, what you're using, what problems you've encountered, or what you think works really well. And one last thing just about what makes a gaming laptop so hard to make. And you were bringing this up earlier, Brad, before we went on air, is about bloatware and just how many things come already on these things.
And I think this is something we sort of see on a price scale, that as you spend a little more for a laptop, you tend to get less bloatware, and if you spend very little on a laptop, you tend to get a lot more. I don't know if you agree with that, but that sort of seems to be my impression of it.
I would agree with this statement.
So they're just putting that in there just because the company's getting some kickback?
Sometimes the company gets a kickback. Sometimes it's just their policy. It's just like Lenovo really also crams the bloatware in there, and they kind of got in trouble, so they whittled it back. But in that case, it's a lot of it is their software. Dell machines, Alienwares tend to have Dell software on them. In this case, we have an MSI, not to jump too far ahead, but that is a really nice system and had so much stuff on it when I got it that we had to reinstall Windows on it.
That sucks. So you buy something brand new and it's got so much crap loaded on it.
And to be fair, we kind of got into this the other day because when I get a new computer, for personal use, the first thing I do is install Windows on it.
You just
wipe it clean and reinstall Windows. I don't want any of the stuff on there. And Windows 10 is really good now at just updating your drivers, so you don't have to do anything, when you reinstall this besides, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Ethernet. You just off you go and it updates everything for you. So it makes it really, really easy to do.
So that's something you could do, get a lower price one, and then just wipe it.
Sure, and I think that's again, I think that's something, if you're going to spend a couple $1,000s on a laptop, you should learn about it, learn how to use it, learn what makes it tick, and that's one of the things I think a lot of users probably do is uninstall software.
Okay.
When you first get it.
Well, so there's some things that are, kind of explaining why it's hard to make a gaming laptop, some of the issues that we see with it. I'm sure you out there have seen these issues. Let's talk about what makes a good gaming laptop. What actually works for these? What do they need to have? What are the components?
I think first thing, and for a good gaming laptop, and something that you should pay attention to if you're looking at a gaming laptop, is you've got to make sure that your screen resolution and the components that are in the laptop make sense. Because we have, there's a lot of different screen resolutions available right now from 1080p, 1440p, 4K, right? Mm-hmm. And we start to see some gaming laptops that have 4K. But as I already mentioned, 1080p 60 and with the highest settings in some games can be pretty difficult to obtain anyway with a gaming laptop. So what are you doing with 4K?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So that's probably a good place to start, is to make sure that your display technology and the graphics chip that you are using to drive it work together. And sometimes we see that. Sometimes we don't. There's definitely a drive for manufacturers to go 4K no matter what.
Right.
Because they can
you slap
charge
4K
for it
on there
and it's like, oh, look, it's got a 4K panel.
Uh-huh.
And
well, that's the best. I must pay for
it's the same reason that gaming laptops sometimes have 32 gigabytes of RAM. Mm-hmm. Don't need it. Not even bordering anywhere near needing that. But
that it looks
someone's
nice,
going to see it and be like,
say,
well, 32 is more than 16, which is more than 8, so I'm buying that one.
Right.
And,
how much RAM do you think is necessary in a good gaming laptop? What do you think is the top end? 8?
16 maybe. I don't know. I think 8
you're going to get
do
16 anyway, probably.
Yeah.
So, but I would agree that 8 is really all that you need.
Okay. So, is it just throwing that in there, throwing in these higher cards just because people will pay more for it?
Well, and I think especially
Does
in
it
gaming
serve
laptops,
any purpose?
There's sort of a mirror of the gaming desktop environment where there is this I want to have a 1080 and I want to have 64 gigs of RAM. And so when you're looking at a gaming laptop, it's really easy to be well, I'm already spending $1,500. Maybe I'll spend an extra $100, get the better screen. Oh, well, it's only another $100. It's sort of the movie theater soda draw in that you're spending a lot of money on this thing and you're just well, I might as well trick it out. I might as well get the nice one. But it's trickier here because on a desktop, I bought too nice my GPU, I spent too much on it. Well, that's okay. I'll go spend a little more on a nice monitor and that'll be fine because my GPU will catch up. Or my monitor's too high resolution, I'll just upgrade my computer. But you can't do that here. Whatever one you choose, whatever that combination is, you're stuck with it. You can upgrade the RAM. Sometimes you can change out a hard drive. Once you've bought that laptop, the screen and the GPU are going to stay the same the whole entire time you have it.
So you want to make sure you're getting what you want.
You got to make sure you're getting what you want, but you also want to make sure you're not going to. If you can't run a game at 4K on a 4K screen now with a GTX 1070 in your laptop, in a year or two, that new game comes out, you're definitely not going to be able to run it, and it's only going to get worse over time.
Yeah,
you're only going to see more diminishing returns as you go.
So don't bother spending the extra money for something like that.
Well, just it's just about balance.
Make sure
more than anything else. If you're getting a 1080p screen, you probably don't need to spend extra to get the 1070 or the 1080, and vice versa.
Yeah.
If you're getting a 4K screen, make sure you do spend the extra. You get the 1070, you get the 1080, so and you can actually play on it.
It pays to really do your research when you're going to go get a gaming laptop, and which I'm sure a lot of people, when they are, if you decide that's what you want to get, some of those things. But I think it would be easy to get lured away by 32 gigs of RAM. That does sound pretty awesome, even though you don't need it at all. But yeah, those are good points to bring up. And we've got a lot of articles at digitaltrends.com too that you can take a look. And I know people are joining in, so we're talking about what makes a good gaming laptop. What are the qualities that you're looking for to make a good one? And then we're going to get into some specific examples that we have here. But I know build quality and aesthetics.
It's kind of an interesting thing that we're coming to now with gaming laptops too, where a gaming laptop a lot of the time used to be really flashy. It was always kind of the thing. I think Alienware was a big part of that. Asus ROG was a big part of that, this red and black and flashing lights and that kind of stuff. And more, I think people are more willing to look at laptops like this MSI, which is a little more toned down. It's still got, some kind of gamery stuff on it. And then you have even laptops, like the Razer Blade has kind of carved a place for itself by looking cool and sort of being, a little more like I see it pop up in Silicon Valley and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of, they've found that market for people who want to spend money on a MacBook or MacBook money on a gaming laptop and get something that
looks cool.
And isn't necessarily so flashy. And I think this, you can see even this red and orange on black is a very, very common look.
And we'll get into too, kind of explaining what we've got here, what these two are. How much? So aesthetics really does matter when it comes to.
Well, it matters. I think to some people more than others, but I think some people either really want or don't mind the really gamery aesthetic, and some people are really looking for something that they can take to work and use at work, and it doesn't look like they're playing video games,
Yeah.
and then they can take it home and
They can blend in.
play some video games.
Yeah.
You know?
You should keep that in mind when you're looking at the laptops, because there's definitely a range of what you can get. You can get ones that are more professional looking. You can get ones that are not really professional looking at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think either is necessarily the better one, which is an area where I think I disagree with some people, because I think there are some who just lean straight towards the slimmer ones, the lighter ones being just nicer, but I don't always agree with that. I think the big ones are fine. They can look nice. The main thing that I pay attention to is, as far as the quality goes, is how well they're built and constructed, because this is something you'll want to think about with a gaming laptop. They're big, right? And things that are large, they need more reinforcement to stay together. So you think about, if I pick up this laptop.
So let's talk about the ones we've got
This
here.
is a 15-inch laptop, okay?
Okay.
And it's a gaming laptop, so it's a large 15-inch laptop. Now, if I'm, again, this is physics. If I'm holding it by the edge, then the amount of weight, that's coming over to this edge that I'm not holding is more than if I was holding a smaller, slimmer device. It would be more compacted over to where I'm actually holding it.
It's putting a lot of pressure
This has
on that.
more force to bend right now because I'm holding on one side. And sometimes gaming laptops, you will pick them up and they'll go groan, creak. That's becoming less and less common.
Right.
But it's been a complaint, about gaming laptops in the past. And also the display lid, for example, also being large. We still see a lot of gaming laptops that have issues with the display lid being a little bendy, a little, you pick
this
it
one in
up and one
particular.
side, you notice, so
like a
this
Snapple lid.
Asus, a problem we have with it is that the middle of it's just you can actually pop the metal.
It's
Yeah.
like an indent on like a
Yeah.
Snapple lid or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a
That's-
great way to
yeah.
describe it. When you press the very middle of it just pops. The metal pops. Which, is not very reassuring.
No.
It's
that
not
does
really what you want.
Instill a lot of confidence in the sustainability of this computer as far as lifting it up and down, 100 times. What's going to happen with it?
And they probably could have put a reinforcement in there or something.
So aesthetics does actually matter,
worked
because
against
when you take a look at it that way and think about what's the construction of it, what's it going to hold up? How's it going to hold up? And that is kind of an important.
Yeah, I mean, I would be a little bit concerned, if I was a student, for example, and I was carrying around my laptop with some heavy books, if my books are always pressing down on that screen, is that bad for it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's bad for it necessarily, but again, it doesn't really instill much confidence.
So we're going to talk about, we've got two laptops here. We're going to kind of detail a little bit about these and get into this. I do want to get a couple of comments here on YouTube, because we're live on YouTube right now. Simon says, I had a Surface 3 and it could run Kerbal Space Program, 20 frames per second, minimum texture 720p for only $800. Intel Z8500X is all I need in a gaming laptop. So
That sounds awful. That's terrible. Do not do what he's done.
Well, or just if that's you,
Yeah.
just don't go sit down and play Kerbal Space Program on a computer that can run it at
Don't do
high
that.
textures at 60 frames per second. Because my brother had this same thing where he was playing Fallout 4 on a GTX 670, I think.
Yeah.
And it was he was playing on 1440p, and it was just chugging. And I came over and looked at it, and I'm like, this is terrible. It looks awful. It's running slow. And he was like, I think it's fine. And I convinced him to buy an RX 480. And he put that thing in, and it was just night and day. He was like, wow, I don't know how I was playing like that. I mean, it's you all of a sudden get this change.
So Simon, they disagree with you on your
I mean,
assessment.
No, it's fine. Just don't ever look at a nice computer running Kerbal Space Program, or you won't like that anymore.
I mean, this is funny. If you go on YouTube, you can actually find there's these whole this is the whole thing of people posting gameplay videos of them playing a game on some outrageously underspec'd system, and they'll be like, it runs fine, 720p gameplay at minimum detail, Counter-Strike on a TI-84, and it's like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but I don't know why you would choose
You're
to.
not getting the maximum experience.
I think it is just one of those things. Once you see the light, it's hard to go back. And even
people have different priorities.
Yeah.
So
and especially the games you're playing do make a big difference. If Kerbal Space Program is your main game and your Surface runs it, then good on you. Have fun,
Yeah.
enjoy your game. if your
But don't
main
look
game
at the
is,
high-end
I always
one.
make a joke about Stardew Valley because I do love that game, but it's super easy to run. It runs on anything that has integrated graphics in it, and it's really nice. And people are like, "Well, I have a gaming laptop because it runs Stardew Valley," and it's like, "Well, that's not how it works." But enjoy your game, like have fun. That's the other thing.
Stardew Valley on maximum detail.
Right?
That pixel art really pops, man.
Bam. Sharp.
We've got Juan here on YouTube who's commenting saying he's got a Dell Inspiron 7000 gaming series, runs 70 to 120 FPS for Overwatch. I feel it's professional, only about $800.
I think that's on one of our top gaming laptop
Yeah, I
selections.
think it is.
It's a great little system, not too expensive, real like mid range, and you do probably get nice
One of
performance in
our
Overwatch on them.
writers, Jace, actually bought that system, and that's like his main rig, and
Really?
because you can play some games on it, decent detail. That's the Dell Inspiron 15 7000 to be clear, and it's $800, and it gets you like a 1080p screen. I think it's a 1050 now,
Yeah.
the GTX 1050, the most recent one. Core i5 quad-core processor. So yeah, that would be an example of a system that's entry level and does a good job with gaming all around.
And again, for anybody watching, let us know what system you have because they'll either judge it or say you've done a good job one way or another. But no, we've got
Those are the choices. Yeah.
No.
but let's talk about the specific examples that we have here because you did bring in two. I don't know, which one do you want to go to first? We kind of referenced these a little bit, but maybe go in depth. And these are specific examples of some gaming laptops that I don't know whether you guys think these are great or not, or what your opinions are on them, but maybe we can kind of detail what we've got here.
Yeah, maybe we'll start with the MSI since I actually reviewed that one.
Okay.
This is the GS63 VR, and this is actually the MSI. This is like a really kind of classic, perennial, I guess, laptop. The GS60, the Ghost Pro, as some people call it. If you look around online, these things have been around for quite a while, and people really like them. That said, it's this company Clevo. It's a Chinese manufacturer. They make laptops and laptop chassis, and basically companies can buy them from them. And this is sort of like an off-the-shelf chassis. You can actually.
I think it looks good. Actually,
it's more attractive than they have been in the past.
Yeah.
This is something that like the last one we had was it was a lot thicker, real flimsy and plasticky case. This one is a lot nicer, and you can actually buy this same laptop from a couple different manufacturers because that's sort of the deal with it. But this one in particular has an i7-6700HQ, a GTX 1060, 16 gigs of RAM, a 256 gigabyte PCIe hard drive, and a 1 terabyte data drive, plus a 1080p panel. And it is like 0.69 inches thick.
It's a lot to cram into a laptop of that size.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is one of the ones that we had all these bloatware issues with. But once we got a new version of Windows installed on it, it actually started to run really well. It has a decent screen, good contrast ratio, good 1080p performance in in Battlefield 1 and Civ to a certain extent. It struggles a bit in Deus Ex because that's Deus Ex for you, but it still gets like 35, 40 average frames per second, which is pretty good comparatively.
And this is the MSI GS63 VR.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that's that system right there.
So yeah,
and what's the price range on that? Do you know?
it's $1,549 for this version.
Okay.
Which is, I think, a good deal for the components you're getting. That's a pretty. You're not really compromising on your parts here. I don't feel like, and especially at 1080p, that 1060 is going to be pretty relevant for a while.
Yeah, well, you're paying a little bit for the size, I think, on that, because I do think you can get like the mainline Acer Predators and Asus G752s for around 1,300.
Yeah.
I think I was seeing.
But was that with a SSD?
Probably a small one.
Yeah.
Probably a small one. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not a bad price for the capabilities of that system. And certainly, I mean, the obvious comparison would be the Razer Blade, which I think starts similarly, but doesn't have the second drive and is going to go up in price pretty quickly as you add the different drive options. So
okay,
and it does have the Blade has a 1070 and the option for a higher resolution panel, whereas this one's only a 1080p panel option.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a compromise there.
Okay.
If you wanted something higher resolution.
And the other system we have here is, I'm going to have to look at it because it's got some sort of,
Again,
elaborate model number, but
Also, if you're listening to the audio podcast, just go to Digital Trends, digitaltrends.com/podcast. You can see the video of this.
Yeah, so this is the Asus Republic of Gamers GL553V.
Okay.
All right.
Now, this
So
is
remember that. This is going to be a test later.
Right.
GL553V.
GL553V.
move the MSI
now, this
over.
is significantly thicker, bigger. I mean, it looks like it's a bigger screen,
Yeah,
That's
probably.
a CD-ROM drive.
It's also the one we were just talking about.
It has
where
an
the-
optical drive. Whoa.
Yeah, wow. Why does it
What's
even
up with
bother?
that, nerds?
Why would you bother having that in there?
So,
I don't know. We were actually talking about that it would have been nice to have a little. Some of them have like swappable bays.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to instead. Well, I want some Thunderbolt 3 ports or some extra USB
Exactly.
ports there instead.
yeah. So this is an example, actually, of a laptop that kind of makes some of the mistakes that a lot of gaming laptops make, unfortunately. Our review on this is going to go up pretty soon, and this is a new model. It was announced.
It's a brand new system.
It was announced at CES. I think it was announced at CES.
I thought it was a little before, but
It was around that time.
it's the first Strix. So they make graphics cards and motherboards under the Strix.
Yeah.
This is Strix name, and this is the first laptop.
So, the issue here is not really performance so much, because all these are using the same hardware. Intel processors, usually in an NVIDIA video card, so they perform more or less the same with those components. But it does have sort of the issue of this feeling a little bit like this was the one we pointed out earlier. It's got the Snapple lid where you move
where it just
the
looks like
display
it's there
lid
for
back
show.
and forth, and the metal in the back. Metal looks great, but it's bendy. That's the problem with metal. Plastic is not to a certain thickness is not going to bend very easily. Metal, though, tends to bend unless you put something behind it.
So in other words, you can dent that if you...
You could dent it, or you can at least expect it's going to pop in and out. And also, this one gets a little hot. It only has one exhaust vent out the side, which isn't really ideal. It kind of directs the heat more towards you, whereas this MSI, its exhaust is all in the back, for example. And we see that in a lot of high-end gaming laptops. They like to direct that heat away from you.
This one also has a fuzzy bottom.
That's the MSI.
It has
I
a
don't know.
fuzzy bottom.
Keep your legs.
So that's also something we look for in the gaming laptop, a fuzzy bottom.
Gotta have a fuzzy bottom.
And yeah, so this is a budget model, so that's sort of why we see some compromises here with the overall thickness, the design, and the construction. But still, that does sort of highlight some of the issues with gaming laptops that you might not want to see, or sacrifices you need to make if you want to get one at a low price.
And how much is this one running? And this is the Asus.
I don't remember exactly what the starting price is,
yeah.
but
Okay.
I believe it is below 1,000.
Okay, so that's definitely a more budget price to
Yeah.
get into. And you're going to have the full review of this up at digitaltrends.com soon.
We'll have full reviews for both of these very soon.
Okay.
So keep an
Yeah,
eye out
so
for them.
So
keep an eye
the
out there.
Asus, that's going to be, I mentioned the Dell that we like earlier. That's going to be a competitor for that.
Okay.
This sort of entry level thing. Also, Samsung has its Odyssey 15 coming out sometime soon. So right now I'm seeing that this Asus goes for actually 1,100
Okay.
to start, which would be a little bit more than we'd like to see probably for it, which is why we're probably not going to give this the hottest review when it comes out, later this week.
Okay. All right, but that'll all be at digitaltrends.com. So, kind of wrapping up here, talking about gaming laptops, about how hard it is to make a good one, what to look for in one if you're going to be buying one. I guess maybe to wrap up, maybe sum up the recommendations that you guys have when you're going to go out and buy a gaming laptop. Somebody wants to game on the, take their laptop with them. What are like 3 specific things they should look out for, just to sum up what we were talking about earlier?
I think I was going to say that, when you're looking at a regular consumer laptop, it's okay to compromise in one area in order to benefit yourself elsewhere. To say, I'm not going to use a high-resolution screen, and so I can get better battery life, or I can have a more portable device. I really want a good keyboard, so I can, you can kind of trade one thing for another.
Yeah.
With a gaming laptop, I think balance is much more important to have. To pick the right balance between thickness and battery life, to get the good performance to go with the right screen, and just to find the right
That works
product
all
that works
across.
kind of is more rounded, because I think you can really say I want a Chromebook for work, and I'm gonna deal with limited application and performance, and instead
Yeah.
I'm going to get great battery life and things like that. And it's harder to make those kind of compromises here and not have it just ruin the whole system.
Yeah, I think you got to be real with yourself about what you're looking to do with your gaming laptop. There's people that are going to want to buy a gaming laptop, and they're not really going to take it outside the house, and that's cool. Like, some people do that because they don't want all the wires or the fuss of a desktop, or maybe they want the option of being able to play on their couch or their desk or their table. That's cool. In that case, you're totally fine. Don't get caught up with like being all slim and cool and having the thinnest model. Get the one that's going to be a little bit thicker. You're going to get benefits from that. You're probably going to get more power. You're definitely going to get something that's a little bit cooler when it's running. So that's totally fine. On the other hand, if you're a student, for example, and you're like, I want something that I am going to take the class but also can play games on, then you're either going to be looking at something like that Dell Inspiron we mentioned earlier. That's like just basically a regular 15-inch notebook with a graphics chip added in. Or you're going to be looking at something like a Razer Blade where, it's like very high-end hardware, but the focus is specifically on making it thin. Or also this MSI, like those are things where they're designed to be more like a regular everyday use laptop. But you got to sort of ask yourself what you're looking for, because if you don't, you're probably going to end up with a system that doesn't quite fill the needs you were looking for.
Yeah.
There's no point in getting something that's thin if you're not going to, go
If
out
that doesn't matter. Yeah. If you're just going to be at home, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is easy to get caught up in that because, I think gaming laptops are very like an emotional purchase, like a gaming laptop is like you're probably getting it because you have a certain idea about the games you play. You're a fan. You're an enthusiast of games. So you might end up getting something that looks a certain way or is, from a certain brand or whatever, without really considering all the options. So, give it a good look at everything and think about what you're actually going to do with that laptop.
Okay. Yep, good points to make. So, and the reviews of these two that we were talking about will be at digitaltrends.com soon, as well as reviews of pretty much everything that comes out. If you want to find out more information, definitely go there and take a look. And I want to say this too, if you're watching on video on YouTube, you can always rewind this video and watch from the beginning. We talked about a bunch of things, but also we have an audio podcast, and you can subscribe to that on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to that, then you can take it with you and you'll instantly get the downloads. But we're live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time right here at digitaltrends.com and on our YouTube channel. So tune into that, watch all the back episodes. We usually find one specific thing and go in depth. So I noticed a lot of people talking about GPUs in the chat. We've got a lot of shows dedicated to GPUs and kind of going in depth with those about what to buy and what you're looking for. So just an example of something that you can go and check out, all in our back catalog right there. I think that's probably it for today. Thank you guys. This is awesome. We'll be back next week with another episode.